our tail of the tape. All right. All right. This is the Coast to Coast Combat Hour. Ed Carbajal, as always, with Matthew Hawkins. Brought to you by AllAccessMMA.com. Please make sure you check out AllAccessMMA.com for your MMA news and interviews and all that stuff. Today is a very special day. I'm not sure what else is going on, but right here on Coast to Coast Combat Hour, Matthew Hawkins is celebrating his birthday. He could have been doing other things because he lives in a really open state, but but he's here grinding out the podcast. Matt, happy birthday.
Thank you. Happy to
Cheers,
be here on
man.
my birthday. Cheers. I made a choice just like Brian Ortega did. And I'm happy to be here. Happy to be doing the show. Obviously in the COVID world, birthday parties are not the, haven't been going off for everybody. So I'm actually just happy to have this opportunity to talk with you and do our thing. We've been pretty consistent, so happy to keep on that train. As you kind of alluded to, there obviously is some other stuff going on in the world today. We're going to try to avoid talking about that, be an outlet here for the next 30 to 60 minutes or so. But again, thank you for the birthday wishes. And again, just love the show. Love doing this with you every week, man. It's great. I love it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I had a birthday not that long ago myself. I don't like to talk about my own personal shit on this podcast, but hey, man, I mean, this is kind of one of a, this was a conversation in the making. We've talked about in the past, having beers inside of an arena or outside an arena, talking about, hey, we should do something one day. And then here we're going on 3 years strong with the podcast. Had many guests from the UFC, Bellator, LFA, Invicta or Invicta alumni, or I'm working on Invicta actually. Speaking of which, I'm supposed to get an interview with Erin Blanchfield. She was supposed to fight Pearl Gonzalez at Invicta FC 40. Is that 43 or 46? I forget the number, but Pearl announced on her Instagram yesterday that she got positive COVID tests, so that fight is now being postponed. I don't know what they're doing in the interim to fix it, but figured I'd throw that out there since we didn't talk shop. We just talked birthday mess. Matthew Hawkins' birthday mess.
Yeah, no, it sucks for Aaron and for Pearl. Obviously, these COVID tests popping up in all aspects of sports really throws a monkey wrench into things. We've actually been pretty good to dodge a lot of bullets, especially in the UFC, as far as not affecting any huge fights. We will get into the Santos Teixeira fight this weekend that has been rescheduled twice. That's probably the biggest headliner fight that I can think of that's really had a heavy effect that hasn't been done. I know Holman and Aldana had the situation, but they got their fight in. But before we jump into that, I think we need to look back a little bit at the UFC this past weekend.
Yeah.
Basically billed as the end or the retirement of Anderson Silva. He goes out and puts on a competitive fight, but unfortunately for him and for some of the hardcore old school MMA fans and people just love Anderson Silva, he suffered a KO loss. Out round 4 of the bout. I thought he looked good. I thought it was Anderson Silva. I mean, he throughout his whole life of fighting, he's made odd moves and strategies that worked for him when he was younger. When you're 44, 45, all of a sudden that little shimmy doesn't shimmy as quick, and you start getting caught with punches. Happens to every single fighter who's ever done it. It just gets really shown, highlighted when it's somebody like Anderson Silva, whose quickness and agility and reaction time and everything is what made him the superstar that he was. So he goes down to a loss. Other than some personal feelings towards it, I wasn't super surprised by it, but definitely disappointing. I think the way it kind of unfolded.
Yeah, I mean, there was during the first and second round, I was kind of like, oh my god, this is like Anderson Silva of old, and he was advancing and like you said, doing his movements and making Uriah Hall hesitant and things like that. But then once the third and fourth round obviously showed It reminded us why this is, this is pretty much it for him. And I know Dana White said he's going to have a talk with him afterward because there's still one fight left on his contract. And a lot of questions that came afterwards was like, are you going to stop him from competing anywhere else contractually, or, kind of do the Randy Couture thing to him? Dana White was like, listen, I don't want to stop him from, doing other stuff that he can do to make a living, but he really shouldn't fight anymore. And listen, I mean, I'm with him on that. I mean, definitely, like he said, 46 is definitely, it's a young man's sport. We all know this. The fighters are in their prime in their early 30s, and then once they get mid 30s and close to 40, that's when folks start making the old jokes about them. And that's unfortunately, Anderson's way past all that. And I mean, he looked good. I'm not gonna lie, he looked really good in those first 2 rounds. But as soon as when he got dropped in the third and then the fourth, obviously we saw what happened. I was just like, yo. They transported him to the hospital afterwards, and it's just like, yeah, this is why. I mean, it would have been nice to see him win, though. It would have been nice to see him. I kind of thought he'd lose a decision, kind of like what he did to Adesanya. But now folks are saying like, hey, maybe Uriah Hall's going to give Adesanya a problem just because of the hesitancy, that he showed in that fight and how he went to a decision. But I honestly think with both, I mean, something that Uriah Hall said and something Adesanya hints at a lot, even now when he looks back at that fight, is just like, you're fighting someone, it's like if I got to fight Boss Rutan or something, you know what I mean? You're fighting someone that motivated you to be a better martial artist and someone you looked up to. And it's one of those things that I don't care who you are, it's going to mess with you, win or lose. I mean, obviously they both beat him, but, it's something that messed with them. So, I mean, the guy is a legend, and give highlight reels galore all over the internet.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he plans to do in the future. I think that he's obviously always been enamored with the idea of boxing Roy Jones Jr., and Roy Jones has that quote unquote boxing match with Mike Tyson coming up. So perhaps depending on how that goes, that might be something that Anderson looks at too. I personally don't like that idea. I don't think I don't think a pure boxing match is good for him right now, especially against somebody who, I mean, I'd have no reason to believe Roy Jones wouldn't probably finish Anderson Silva in a straight boxing match. I think Roy Jones would finish almost every middleweight in the UFC in a straight boxing match. So that's interesting. When guys get older, especially in the UFC, and they're trying to get out of their contract or move on, we always have the Fedor thing. It's always there as long as they're competing. And, although it would be in theory a middleweight against a heavyweight, that the Anderson Silva Fedor fight is a fight that, I mean, again, it's kind of one of those, you could do it now because both guys are old and you don't really, a loss doesn't mean a damn thing. It would just be 2 legends basically fighting. So I don't know if that's something that's even on their radar. It just seems like that's a possibility that always comes up when you start having these guys retire and move on, especially the heavyweights. But with Anderson Silva, there was always kind of that question. Well, he could fight at 205. If he does like a 200, 15-pound, 225-pound catch weight or something with Fedor, is that something that they could work out? But again, that's just wishful thinking. And again, maybe a fight that doesn't make sense for Silva because a big punch putting his lights out again probably might not be the best thing for him. But I don't know. He should be able to do whatever he wants. My biggest beef with Dana White is, although I do believe that he has I believe his intention is good for a lot of these fighters. I don't know of any other real sport where like the commissioner basically decides when it's time for you to retire. That's a weird thing. And I understand they're under contract. But Dana White talks out of both sides.
That's also the out of a lot of contracts too, though. Like when fighter wants out, they'll say retirement, and then they have to like be inactive for a certain amount of time. If you guys really want details on I think Eric McCracken's Combat Sports Law website, he has the PDF of like the standard UFC contract where you can see all that stuff. I mean, I'm just thinking off of the top of my head because he's put up screenshots in the past. So shout out to Eric McCracken over in the great white north in Canada, but he does a lot of he's done a lot of examining of UFC contracts. And I think that's the reason why, you'll see, look at Henry Cejudo. Obviously wants to fight, but he wants. It's like he wanted the freedom because now there's talk of him coming back. So I think that's one of the ways to get out. I mean, look how many times Conor retired. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it seems like it carries on. Basically, you have to turn down. Again, Eric McCracken will be the guy to check for his feed for exact information. I just think I was going to comment about Dana White. Talking about how he didn't feel right, like he felt like he had done Anderson Silva wrong or something. And maybe he did. Nobody. I mean, who's making these fights? There's probably 65 middleweights on the UFC roster that Anderson Silva probably could dispose of fairly easily. But, Dana likes to give like the BJ Penns and these guys like fights that they have no chance of winning and then acting like, he's disgusted that the fight ever took place when he's the one making it. So I don't get that. There was plenty of guys. You could have brought in a guy from friggin' the Contender Series to fight Anderson Silva if you wanted to do just some kind of, farewell win for him. But we'll see how that goes. Also on the card, picking up some nice wins. Bryce Mitchell picked up a big win over Andre Fili, moving him up the ranks. Greg Hardy continues to roll at heavyweight, picking up a big win over Maurice Green in the first round. And Kevin Holland also picked up a big win, slamming his opponent to the ground, causing a neck injury. Kind of a scary moment for a while. But Charlie Ontiveros seems to recover.
That win, just really quick about Greg Hardy's win. He he won, but I feel like he's got to do something about his cardio. I know he's got the same lung issues I do because he uses the same inhaler I do, but I just feel like, I don't know. I mean, when he won, as I was watching it, I was watching it at a bar, but I was like, hey, he fell over like he lost.
Yeah, I he's a big guy. I think he damn near missed weight. He made weight at the last second. That would have been the first heavyweight in UFC history to miss weight.
And I'm sorry if I seem distracted. I'm actually on Combat Sports Law now because I want to see if I can find that contract.
Oh, no problem. So, but a win for Hardy. I mean, in a weak heavyweight division, or I shouldn't say a weak, in a not super deep heavyweight division. Hardy's lining himself up. I know he already fought Volkov, which was a way too early for him to have that fight, but he's really working himself up into a bigger fight here to help move him towards the top of the rankings. You said you caught the Bryce Mitchell fight. He just continues to impress. He got his camo shorts.
Yeah.
Didn't get the submission this fight, but controlled pretty much from start to finish. What's your feeling on him now that he moves to 14-0?
I mean, he's just there's definitely something in the water where he's from, or whatever you want to call it, because the fact that he was just constant attack. It reminded me of back in the day, Frankie Edgar with just constant attacking, where it's like, yeah, I mean, and not for nothing, Fili handled him pretty well, I thought, but for someone that's just on the attack as often as that guy was, I mean, listen, I know he said the stuff about being an anti-masker or whatever after the fight, but I mean, there is it's funny because Uriah Hall talked about this a lot in the post-fight presser of the same event, and enjoys the contract contains champion clause. Let me see if this is it. Sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once, but whoa, this was big. It's a big file.
They're not gonna make those contracts easy to get out of, or even though you understand.
But Uriah Hall commented on it, and some of the stuff like Bryce Mitchell. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's just him. That's his character and all that, But he was saying, if you want to say and do stupid shit, that's just the world we live in. But Uriah Hall's going to do the opposite of what Bryce Mitchell did, and which is pretty much what Fedor has done his whole career, and Khabib Nurmagomedov and other fighters. He's like, it's just like he doesn't care about what's written on the internet or what's done on the microphone. He's just going to, the wins eventually are going to make it to the point that you cannot be ignored for title shots and rankings and things like that. And that's his plan for, moving forward. It looks like Bryce Mitchell could do the same thing because I think he's that good. But I mean, everybody's got their own personality, and the thing as you become a rising star in anything, the microphone gets put in your face and you get a platform, and here we go. So.
Well, I mean, he's such a threat on the ground. His submission game and everything is such a threat. I'll be interested to see which top featherweights jump at the opportunity to fight him. When usually when it's a puncher, it's different. Everybody thinks they can knock each other out. When you have somebody who seems like such an ace and is so much better than everybody he's competed with up until this point, one aspect of the fighting game, it'll be interesting. I mean, I don't see guys like Holloway and Volkanovski's obviously the champion, but a lot of these guys, just Korean Zombie and these guys, I'd be surprised to see them jump at the chance to fight Bryce Mitchell. So be interested to see what he does. Obviously he's the country boy from Arkansas, probably a little bit of moonshine in his water. It's probably what the issue is, but no, man, entertaining as hell. It'd be interesting to see where he goes. A lot of these Ultimate Fighter guys get a little bit of discredited from guys like me. I'm not going to put anybody else, but you kind of feel like they get kind of jumped into the spotlight or thrust into the spotlight, and they're not that good. They just kind of build a name for themselves, win a couple fights, but he's really earned his spot in my book, at least.
Speaking of Ultimate Fighter, they announced another season that's going to be on ESPN Plus, which I'm all thank God it's there. You know what I mean? Like I've long been tuned out of the Ultimate Fighter. I always keep a thumb on who's fighting there and how good they are. Like I really do only care about the fights, which is why I prefer Contender Series over the Ultimate Fighter. But they're doing another season of that on ESPN Plus just to I guess that's going to give them the reason to charge for that content. But I don't know, man. I think when you look at the Contender Series and all the opportunities that have come from this time during the pandemic, like look at all. I mean, like Khamzat Chimaev, that guy probably could have been on Ultimate Fight or something, but now he doesn't need it. You know what I mean? Because they needed a guy where they were at. They found a guy where they were at, inserted him, and he wound up being a wrecking machine. So I mean, it's cool. I know that's the Ultimate Fighter. Obviously, season 1 has a lot to do with the growth, the explosion of mixed martial arts in households. But we're past that now.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as necessary anymore. You like you said, you got the Contender Series.
Which I like way better, and I hate that it's on freaking ESPN Plus. But thank God Nolan King keeps us posted on everything going on there.
I mean, between that LFA, it just seems like there's so many ways to the UFC now that it's not necessarily you're dragging on. To me, the Ultimate Fighter is just dragging on what the Contender Series does in one night, or what the Contender Series can do in like 3 weeks. Basically, where you find like 2 or 3 potential UFC fighters. Does anybody care anymore what kind of food some fighter has in the freezer, or
pissing on somebody's bed and all that shit?
Yeah, I mean, in the early days, that was just cool because people weren't as familiar with the whole lifestyle, and you had characters. I mean, you just don't have we haven't had another season when you get cost checks and Chris Liebens and Diego Sanchez.
Because the characters are already out there and they're already making their way. Like the Mike Perrys and the Jorge Masvidals and Bryce Mitchell, they're already doing their thing out there without. But it is what it is. I mean, I just hope putting that many people closed off in front of a camera like that. I feel like that's just we're not going to get the true fighters. Like obviously, like what we're getting from Bryce Mitchell and Jorge Masvidal and all these guys I just mentioned. That's who they are. And they've fought their way, long enough that now they have a platform that we can see who they are. But when you get somebody that's in a reality show type of setting, I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of, forced personalities. You know what I mean? So
I wonder where they're going to pull from, You know, like, are they going to bring LFA fighters in? Is it going to be, because that for me that makes it more exciting if I
Yeah.
recognize somebody. Now we've talked to a lot of the guys, a few LFA fighters.
Yeah, like when they did that flyweight season, that was a great season.
There you go. They're the undefeated flyweight, and then
Yeah.
the stuff like that where you're kind of familiar with guys, even if you don't know everybody. You go, okay, even going back to like the heavyweight one, we had Kimbo, and most of the guys didn't know a lot of the other guys. We had Roy Nelson, who the hardcore fans at that time knew. So if you can bring that to this era where you can kind of, but we've talked to other guys. And I can't remember exactly, so I want to be careful quoting anybody. So I'm not going to quote, but I think Justin Wetzel, maybe when we spoke to him, was kind of not so keen on the idea um, of going to the Ultimate Fighter. He thought he had done enough and he was doing enough. So it'll be weird to see who they are able to get to compete in it, because there's so many outlets to get there now. And it seems like more fighters now kind of talk down on the idea of competing in the Ultimate Fighter, as opposed to years past. Years past, that was like the golden ticket. Now it just seems like it's kind of a pain in the ass. I also don't know exactly how we're gonna film a show during a pandemic. I mean, when is this?
Yeah.
The whole aspect of everything seems really, really weird. I mean, I'd even be all for, like, why do they have to live in the same house? Why can't we just record them like getting ready for the fight and then just fighting from their gyms or something?
Yeah,
I mean,
putting a
we
bunch
don't.
of people together is kind of a bad idea these days.
It
But
and it just doesn't. It just does. It's ran its course.
yeah.
I don't see that. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, Bryce Mitchell on the move up. Sad to see Anderson lose. Curious to see where he goes. Honestly, I'd be happy to see him retire. Just leave on. If unless he's going to fight some which I'm all for too.
Not
In a
everyone gets
retirement.
to walk away that George St. Pierre did. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to get a lot of those type of retirement fights.
I
Guys,
hate these guys retiring in empty arenas. But Anderson Silva deserves to retire in a sold out arena in Brazil.
yeah, I mean, you said it kind of after we recorded last week, but I mean, I couldn't help but I tweeted it out a couple of times on Saturday. That they really should have put that fight, at least switched over for the one fight on regular ESPN, because I felt like that went under the radar. And oh God, why am I forgetting his name? Jason Floyd. He said the same thing I said. He's like, you're not gonna, they're not gonna tune out college football for this as much as the sentiment, is true. The college football, it's all money, man. It's all about the money.
I know, but they have ESPN2. They've got ESPN News. Excuse me. There's a bunch of options. They just didn't want to do it. It's not the contract the UFC signed, and I think in the long run, we can argue the ESPN thing plus all day and night. I mean, the numbers don't look great for the pay-per-views. I mean, we hear, what was it, a week ago? Dana White was saying that Khabib and Gaethje was like projected to be the top selling pay-per-view of all time, or on par with one of McGregor's fights. And it comes out, it does like 500,000 sales.
And there's really no way to know, like you said, because it's all ESPN,
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. If the UFC tells me there's 1 million buys, I pretty much believe there's probably like 600,000. So if they're telling me there's 500,000 buys, I'm thinking it's more like 300. I don't think people can. It was a pay-per-view that started at 2 p.m. also on the East Coast, which is great for a guy like you, but maybe not so great for the
fucking loved it.
Yeah, maybe not so great for the father of 4 or something who's got soccer practice and stuff. But that was the UFC. We got a Bellator card. Well, we had the Musasi fight last week as well.
Oh yeah,
Musasi and Lima didn't didn't work its way up to the hype that I think at least somebody like me thought it was going to. Should have known a little better.
Yeah.
Stylistically, it lended itself to kind of ending the exact way it did. Musasi winning a decision 4 rounds to 1.
Yeah.
3 rounds to 2 on one card.
I mean, you had a lot of people complaining about it too, but when you listen to, I put it up, check out MMAnews.com. I put it up the day after, Friday after, where Musasi kind of, number one, he says, I sort of overestimated his ability. And number two, he's just like after the first round, I knew I'm not putting him away. This is going 5 rounds because it's Douglas Lima, who's, I mean, come on, he's definitely, I mean, he was fighting at middleweight, but he's definitely like one of the top welterweights in the world. So, you know, I don't know. It was a little frustrating to see some of the commentary. I was actually doing live results for the CFFC 86 that night, so it was a 2-screen night for me. I felt like you. It was a 2-screen night for me, but I had to do results for the one event for my MMA news, and keep watching that one too, so I could do something in the next day for MMA news. And I was just like, man, I was like, I was frustrated watching it, but I mean, 2 really good guys. Technically, I mean, former middleweight champion versus a current welterweight champ, and now he's middleweight. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was the typical. Stylistically, they both lend themselves to be somewhat passive, almost counter strikers. And when you get 2 of those kind of together, Lima just didn't pull the trigger enough. Musashi pulled it just enough to do what he had to do. Lima could have probably turned the tide at certain times, or at least put some pressure on Gegard to step up his output, but that really never happened. So Musashi picks up the win. Once again, the 85 champion. Lima retains his belt at 170. So not much has changed as far as the aspect of the divisions in Bellator, but obviously Lima coming off a loss, not a devastating loss, so I don't see this derailing him too much at 170, but it'll be interesting to see if Bellator kind of works away from these kind of fights now. We had a little run there. The Chandler, Patricky, Bader doing his thing. Bader won a tournament, so it's a little bit different, but you got, it's interesting to see how they do it, especially when Lima was on such a great run. It was the fight we all wanted, so I respect Bellator for putting it on, but in hindsight, it may not have been the best thing business-wise for them, but we'll see where it goes. If Lima comes back and KO's next opponent.
I'm worried about the Thursday night slot. I mean, if they switch it, then it's because the numbers aren't really pulling for them. But I mean, I think the timing is bad too. You got football, you got all kinds of other things going on, and it's like us with this podcast on Tuesday nights lately. We usually get more viewers in when we go live, but we've been competing with like Contender Series. Tonight we got the election, and God knows what else is. God knows what other pandemonium is going on out there.
Yeah,
it's your birthday, and it's like nobody cares.
I know, it's chaos. I long for the old days of going to New York for my birthday and there being a fight.
Oh, that's right.
God,
man. That was last year, right?
Yeah, 2 years ago.
2 years ago?
2 years ago, 2018. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Jesus.
yeah, it's it'll be interesting. Thursday night thing is not. I don't mind the Thursday night. I don't like the early start times. I know that does good for you. Seems to me like this next start time on this next one's 7 Eastern, 4 o'clock on the West Coast. They're chalking it up to not having any viewers on the West Coast.
It's good for me because I usually am still working when the first couple cards start. Luckily, they lost that fight that they pushed it back an hour, but still, it's still, they got it. I mean, yeah, it's rough. It's rough. I mean, if anything, I don't know. Thank God they streamed the prelims on YouTube, so you could always go back and catch what you missed for the early stuff. But not everybody watches the early stuff like you and I do. So
yeah. Well, I mean, out here they take it out of my hands. If you start the prelims at noon on a Thursday when I'm at work, I might get a break where I can catch a fight or two, but it's they pretty much taken it out of your hands, and I don't know. They know what they're doing in theory, so we'll see what happens. But this Thursday,
talking about just before Jake Hager's fight against Carlton. I mean, I don't know if people thought that. I didn't know anything about him. I read Nolan King. He's there on site. He's there on site for. Usually I am too, but with this whole situation, there's no way I don't do it full time like he does. So make sure you follow him for Bellator stuff because he's right there, and so is Bellator till the end of the year. At least as far as we know. But anyway, the guy he fought was a catch wrestler, former Pittsburgh Steelers. I forgot what position he played. And I feel like maybe they thought that was going to be an easy fight for Hager, but that dude was tough. Hager got transported to the hospital after that fight. I mean, shout out to Jake Hager though for like having a positive attitude and being raring to go. He's people thought that he was going to leave MMA after that, and he's like, no, I'm ready for the next one. So I like the guy, and I like AEW and the Inner Circle.
Oh, jeez. Good, crazy fight.
Yeah.
Not the greatest exhibition of skills ever seen at the heavyweight division, but a couple guys showed a lot of heart. I felt like this was the fight that we always get with guys like Hager, or whether it's Bobby Lashley or Brock, not so much because his were so high profile. But like David Batista, some of these guys who have come in and tried MMA, they tend to have this fight where, with Lashley, I believe it was Griggs who did some damage and hurt him and beat him.
I like Bobby Lashley, man. He kind of walked away from MMA, but I was like, man, that's one guy I wish stayed, but I know he likes pro wrestling better.
Yeah, the thing about Hager, though, I was going to get to is that he showed the heart to overcome the adversity, pulled it out. It was a split decision win, but if he wants to keep going, good for him. I think that this probably shows that, the ideas of him fighting guys like Minakov or Fedor or any of those guys is probably something that we'll never see.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps somewhat like the Lashley. I have a feeling we're gonna have he's gonna get like 5 more fights out of him, and he pretty much fights just schmoes. Maybe gets that mid-tier heavyweight, and we'll see what happens. Or maybe they bring back some retired heavyweight, Gabriel Gonzaga or something like that to fight him. But he showed heart, picked up the big win. He stays undefeated, which is obviously big for his pro wrestling persona.
You know what I like is that they kind of, I don't know if it's an agreement or something, but they're obviously, he wore his AEW logo on his shorts. He walked in with an Inner Circle shirt on, and we walked into the cage. And then when he has matches in AEW, they use some of the Bellator like B-roll on the big screen in the back. So I'm like, I love there's a weird kinship. And James Lynch, actually, who's been on the podcast, interviewed him for MMAnews.com the week of the event, early that week of the event. And Jake Hager said that he's like super lucky because he said both AEW and Bellator are great companies to be an athlete for, because they're pretty much giving him free reign to do both. So I mean, I wish more promoters were like that.
I mean, I think the natural thing for him is to see Jake Hager in Ryzen.
That would be.
To me, that's where you're gonna find a heavyweight for him to fight. Give him some sumo. I mean, that's what he is. Whether he likes it or not, he's the freak show. He's the 2020 freak show. He's not the 400-pound sumo guy, but he's the pro wrestler.
I have a criticism about him though, and I know he's got a really good boxing trainer, but I feel like whoever's coaching him, either he's not doing it enough, because he did have a reach advantage and he was landing a right. He was throwing a 1-2 punch combo and the right straight kept landing. And I feel like if he just led that with a leg kick or something, and just more strikes instead of just 1-1-2, 1-1-2, which I'm kind of guilty of myself from back in the day when I used to spar. But it's like something that it's like, man, if you let your hands go a little bit, this guy would have had problems. I'd like to see him fight. I can't remember the name of the guy. The redheaded dude, he calls himself Sasquatch or something. Bellator used him as an alternate before they went to the Euro series. I'd have to look at he's a karate guy and was kind of expected to lose. He's I can't if I remember his name, but that's if they're gonna make him fight somebody, that's got to be his next opponent. Their record's about the same. Their experience is about the same. I mean, he'd probably give Jake Hager just as much problems as Colton did. But yeah, that was a good fight, man.
Yeah, it's a good fight, entertaining fight. Again, that brings us to this Thursday. Like I said, early start time, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Main event, though.
I'll bring it up.
MMA and kickboxing. I shouldn't say MMA legend. Kickboxing, combat sport legend Melvin Manhoff and Corey Anderson. makes his
Here we go.
debut as signing with Bellator. And
How is Manhoff like up there? And I feel like, is he older?
yeah, he's let me check his date. Yeah, he's 44. So this
Yeah,
is
dangerous.
yeah, it's not the not
Uh,
not it's the fight that I expected Bellator to give him because it's a name.
Because he had a
Uh,
couple of knockouts like in 2016, 2015 that he lost it. I was concerned for like the future of his career.
yeah, you're talking about like the Carvalho. He lost to Carvalho twice, and then
Didn't Hisaki Kato knock him out too, or he knocked out Kato? I
Schilling
forget.
knocked him out. He knocked out Kato,
Okay.
but Schilling. But he's on a 2-fight MMA win streak now, and he also had a kickboxing win about 2 years ago, 3 years ago actually, over Remy Bonjowski. So is on a 3-fight combat win. It's a warm up fight for Corey Anderson. It's a fight he should win. Obviously, it's kind of a gatekeeper fight for Manoff. It's kind of what he's become. But it's not one where Corey Anderson can sleep on it. If he sleeps on this fight and sleeps for even 1 second, he will find himself asleep because Manoff will not hesitate to put his lights out. But I expect Corey Anderson to go in there, use his grappling, get Manoff against the fence, get him down to the ground, and I think he ends up getting a stoppage win, late second round. But it'd make my Thursday to see Manoff just just
Yeah,
put him down.
I just ever since those losses, I'm always concerned. I feel like we're gonna see a KO off of Anderson in his debut, especially since his debut. He's not trying to, you never know. A lot of guys. I mean, look how many guys had bad debuts coming from. Like Benson Henderson didn't do well when he debuted. I'm trying to think who else.
Oh well, Musasi didn't have a great fight with
Yeah,
Storm Shlamenko.
yeah.
Like you said, Korshkov fought Henderson. So this is a little different, but we'll see what happens. Co-main event: Tyrell Fortune. He returns against Syed Soma. Don't know a lot about Soma. Fortune, one of the up-and-coming heavyweights, who had a loss to Tim Johnson. Looks to keep rebounding and working his way up the rankings there in the heavyweight division of Bellator. One of our former guests, Derek Anderson, who's been scheduled to fight everybody from Paul Daly to MVP to everybody else, finally gets an opponent here in Achilles Mota, 12-1 fighter out of Brazil.
Where's that? That's on the prelims?
No, main card, right under that one.
Why don't I see that? This day.
Okay, the next one then.
This one here.
So they got it in different order than on there. So yeah, so Derek Anderson, the Barbarian or Barbaric, I'm sorry, Barbaric Derek. He returns, fan favorite, really a top contender in the division, but he seems to have been lost through injuries and just getting kind of lost in the mix of fights, especially at lightweight and welterweight. The opening fight, I thought was the opening fight, appears maybe as the second fight, a fight that you're familiar with both of the gentlemen competing. Austin Vanderfort, who is undefeated in MMA and had been doing really well with Chael Sonnen's Submission Underground before a recent loss. He faces Vinicius De Jesus, who you've spoken to several occasions, the former CES champion of the world. So I'd be curious to see how you see this fight going, especially two guys who you've spoken to and really watched their careers unfold over the last 5 years or so.
Yeah, Vanderford used to fight at Victory, and it's funny. I mean, I'm glad he's fighting at 185. He used to fight at welterweight there, and as we know, De Jesus normally fights at welterweight. He's taking this at 185 because it was literally, I think, Monday or yesterday, the news about Vanderfort's original opponent was Chris Curtis. Shout out to once again Nolan King, who's been on the podcast, who broke that news over at MMA Junkie. I forget if it was COVID related or whatever that he got removed, but De Jesus is from the area, and listen, I've talked to the guy enough times to know that he's never not ready to compete in something. When I interviewed him, he was simultaneously preparing for his CES title fight and the Combat Jiu-Jitsu Worlds. He takes days like to go to train at Marcelo's and Renzo Gracie's in New York, drives all the way down from Connecticut to do it. And I mean, the dude is having stood next to them physically. I feel like they're it's a great matchup physically, stylistically. I think we're going to see Vanderford obviously is the grappler. I mean, but he's got a pretty seasoned MMA record too. But when I saw Vinicius fight the last time he fought in Bellator, people thought he was, they were accusing him of being just a jiu-jitsu guy. And he wound up destroying the guy with leg kicks and getting a TKO, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if you have the record in front of you, but he didn't beat him with jiu-jitsu. And he said in the post-fight interview afterward, I think that's when I first met him, he was like, I'm trying to prove that I'm an all-around fighter. And the fact that I honestly feel like this is going to be a better fight versus what was originally booked, just because we're going to see two guys that have a lot in both of their toolboxes try to impose their will against each other. And don't sleep on the short notice for this. Is one of those fights where usually I go with the guy that's been in camp getting ready, but I did not. De Jesus is kind of always in camp, but we'll know when weigh-ins are tomorrow, and we'll know when if that's the case. But yeah, he's definitely that's definitely somebody that I'm looking forward to seeing this fight.
That's a good fight, and I look forward to seeing it too. I don't know. It's a hard fight to pick. It's a really a good fight, and it's a better fight, I believe, than the first fight that was initially scheduled with Curtis. So, yeah, entertaining 4-fight card tomorrow or on Thursday. I predict a lot of finishes. So, hopefully it'll work. If you're on the West Coast, definitely remember to set your DVRs. CBS Sports Network Thursday at 4:00 here on the West Coast. Saturday, Brink rolls around then. And we get another UFC card. Really, the only fight on this. I mean, there's some good names, but obviously the main event: Thiago Santos, Glover Teixeira, basically a number one contender fight at this point. With John Jones stepping away, Jan Blachowicz, the new champion. Looks like we lost Ed here. He should be jumping back in, but Glover 31-7, just an all-time. Animal brings it every fight, coming off of a dominating win over Anthony Smith at middleweight, or I'm sorry, at light heavyweight. But and Thiago Santos makes his return since his fight with John Jones. Seems like that's been forever ago. Really, it's only been, I guess what, year and a half or so, but yeah, just a great light heavyweight fight. I think that I picked Glover over Anthony Smith, and I'm going to do it again. I think old man strength here. I think that Thiago Santos has to get over the fact of destroying his knees and getting back into a cage. I just Thiago Santos has ups and downs. He's had some fights where he's looked terrible. He's had other fights where he looks great. I'm just going to go with the veteran in Glover, and I think he puts pressure on Thiago, manages to get him down to the ground, and I feel like Teixeira is one of the most underrated ground technicians in all of MMA, especially at light heavyweight, through his pressure and his submission skills. He's a great all-around fighter who came to the UFC later in his career. But
Thiago's Marreta, right? I mean, I'm sorry,
Marietta.
Yeah, Santos. I'm talking about
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring that up too.
Yeah, I mean, this is the winner of this fight's. Gotta be title shot. Gotta be title shot. I can't even.
I would think so. I'm just. I mean, the only reason because this is Santos' first fight. I know he's ranked number 1, but this is his first fight off of from coming off of his surgery, right?
Yeah, first fight since he fought John Jones. In a fight a lot. So I just think I think if he wins if either of these guys win in impressive fashion, I think it's an automatic title shot. The only other thing we're hearing rumors now is maybe of Israel Adesanya coming up and fighting Jan at light heavyweight, which doesn't make any sense to me at all. Let Blachowicz do some of his own, clean up his own division a little bit before we start talking about him fighting the middleweight king right now. So. And interesting. I love that. I love the fight. Like I said, this fight had been canceled twice due to COVID. So hopefully there's not a third strike on it. But yeah, I think Glover picks up the win. I'd like to see him. The road is paved right now for Glover Teixeira to end up with a UFC title. There's never all of these guys.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a room now of 4 or 5 guys that really were on the outside looking in as long as John Jones was around. Mm-hmm. And now all of them have a chance to gather up a title belt before they call it a career.
Yeah, it's a really good take. Really good birthday take.
Andrei Arlovski on the card by name only. He's like 2-6 in his last 8 or so. Tanner Boser also, coming off a couple wins.
It's going to be a rough one.
Yeah. Brendan Allen, Ian Heinstich is a good fight. My girl Claudia Gadelia, that'll be the fight that I will be. Obviously, that opens up the main card, but I'm one of her stands, so I will be rooting hard for her. Don't know a lot about Jan Zionan, but hopefully Gadelia manages to pick up another win here and work her way up the rankings. Entertaining card. Let me check the. I believe, unfortunately for the normal. Yep, it is another ESPN Plus card.
Yeah, it says it here.
Which means ESPN will probably have like East Western Mississippi State versus, South Sam Houston State or something, on at that time of night. But
yeah,
we complain. The depth of these cards is questionable, to say the least.
I feel like definitely last weekend's card though was not questionable. I like that card a lot.
No, last weekend was a legit. Card, yeah. That was a legit fight night card. Some of these other ones, listen, Andrei Arlovski being a co-main event, that ship sailed in like 2013. So, but he's the pit bull. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to him. I just think the slots are. But the card order doesn't make any sense, and that goes for Bellator too.
I brought up the election results because we're talking about fights. I figured let's look at who's winning on this card.
Yeah, I think everything's still too early to call.
Yeah, but I know we don't really do politics on this podcast.
I mean, if we're gonna break down a political thing right there, the Florida, the Georgia, the Wisconsin, Michigan are the fact that those are all tilting. Red is odd. Ohio being slightly blue is in Pennsylvania. It's gonna be close. So let's just end that on that. I'm gonna call it here. Finish my beer. Fans can check us out at Combat Hour on Twitter, Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour on Instagram. Check us out at allaccessmma.com. You can follow me, Matthew Hawkins, at MMA Hawk 21 on Twitter and Instagram. Follow Ed at Carbazol on Twitter, Carbeerzol on Instagram, Old Head Carb on Twitch. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, and I will look forward to talking to you next week. And maybe have another beer again next week. Who knows? We'll see how tonight wraps up.
What are you rushing away for? What do you got? Some hottie calling you on the birthday, trying to get you some birthday poontang?
We start bringing politics into the show. It's time to call it and celebrate Taco Tuesday now.
I can't do Taco Tuesday anymore because I do this podcast.
Grubhub.
Yeah, no, I'm too late for me to eat over here.
I know. All right, brother. Well, have a good rest of the night. Thanks for all the birthday wishes. Before we sign off, on a personal note, one of my friends passed away last night. I don't want to say too much because I'm not sure how much of his family is. I don't know how many. I don't think anybody listens to the show, but Anthony, you'll be missed, brother, and my life would be different if you weren't in it. So we'll miss you and thinking about your family. So right. We'll end it on that. Be safe, everybody.
Yeah, you too, man. Enjoy the rest of your birthday.